my God, look what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Fat Man Beyond. I'm Kevin Smith.
I'm Marc Bernardin.
Hey! Oh my God, look what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. There going like, welcome to Fat. What's with the what? He's wearing that old outfit and shit like that. That's right. I went back to classic duds for this episode. Got dressed because we got special guests we're going to bring on later on, ladies and gentlemen. So I put on my Sunday best today.
Ooh, so nice.
How you been doing, Mr. Marc Bernard? I'm going to put on a funny hat while you talk.
Fair enough. I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. It's been a week. Every week feels like it's a week. Today, I've been tickled to see that somebody's trying to brute force hack their way into my Twitter account. Yeah, like because I have the two-factor authorization on there, which means that if you want to reset my password, it needs to send me a code. And I've gotten like 50 texts from Twitter saying the new code for your account is blah blah blah. Somebody's trying to work their way into my password, so it's not working. But
I'm sorry. I just wanted to post a few dick pics. I didn't think you'd take it so personally.
I mean, I have no problem with Mr. Grayson appearing all over my Twitter account. That's fine by me. But yeah, that's
isn't it weird when you know, like in the world of credit, sometimes your credit card company is like, hey, somebody tried to use your card, and you're like, what? That's so fucking weird. In Twitter, you almost find out real time that somebody is trying to defraud you. You know, with that notice where it's like, well, I didn't fucking do that. Oh my God, it's happening as we speak. And somewhere out in the world, somebody who's listened to a lot of Fat Man Beyond is trying to figure out your password. They're going like Jeff's kiss. And shit like that. Try to get inside your mind, man. How strong is your password?
It's so strong, I don't remember it.
A good one right there. That's perfect.
I can't get into it. It's fairly robust. I mean, I'm not the guy who's like, Google, have at it. Like, just put 15 random characters together and then I'm going to trust you to know how to get into my shit. Like, I still kind of need to know what it is. But there's like letters that should be numbers and rando fucking symbols in there. I think I'm okay, but it is always endearing to see somebody trying so hard.
What's the worst thing they could post from your account from your perspective? Like love for some shittily written thing that you'd be like, oh, take thy beak from out my heart. How dare you?
That's how dare you betray my artistic critical integrity, you Philistine. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, boy, I love white people.
Pretty sure I've seen that tweet on your account from time to time.
I know, because it's true. However,
I remember somebody hacked my account one day, and you go check this. This happened at one point, and like said, I just want to come out to the world and announce that I'm gay or something like that. And so, you know, when I got my account back, I was just like, look, y'all know that wasn't me because I told you years ago that, you know, I fucking lean in yon direction. So clearly I was hacked and shit like that. It is a bizarre feeling when somebody kind of comes in and shits it. I would imagine it's kind of like the feeling of somebody breaking into your house where you're just like, well, that was unsettling.
Right. Like there's some stuff gone or actually it's just moved around. Like nobody took anything. They just moved some shit. Like, so not only did you invade my space, but you didn't even do what I thought you'd do. So that's just been today.
Whoever's doing this, leave him alone. Leave Marc alone, for heaven's sake.
Come on.
Jesus.
I promise, I like the Snyder Cut. You don't have to do this. I appreciate your restraint, sir.
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to... I know some things, kids. I
didn't mean to underhand softball you that easily.
I can't. Yeah, no. You could see me having a struggle to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, which is adorable.
I'm not a visionary, but I have seen some things. We'll talk about that
in a couple of weeks,
somewhere down the road, ladies and gentlemen. But I know I'm not allowed to just. That's all I'm allowed to do.
All right. One thing I will ask you, if you did see, which I know you can talk about, is Coming to America.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's been a fantastic weekend of watching shit, starting on Thursday night with WandaVision. But Coming to America was my Friday night with my wife. And my God, I had such a blast. I don't know what anyone else was looking for in the movie, but I was wholly satisfied. A real love fest. I mean, like, look, as the guy who made Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which I'm not saying is like this movie at all, but very, hey, let's go back in time and fucking have a good time and hope people enjoy it as well. And by the way, we'll bring back as many familiar faces as possible. I've recognized a kindred spirit in Coming to America. That all being said, it satisfied me on every fucking level. Spoilers, there's even a Duke and Duke cameo, for heaven's sake. And that's what I was there for. I was there to see the same movie, and I got the same movie, essentially, a kind of modern update. I was there to watch characters I fucking loved for 3 decades come together. I couldn't believe the amount of fan service they provided in terms of bringing anybody who's still around or in some incarnation, bringing them, put them on screen during the movie. Even people who are in the original who did not return still kind of got to return in flashback moments. I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the actors I'm talking about. Very famous cameo for the first one that, shows up again. They replay the cameo, but he didn't return in a role. One of the few that didn't return from Coming to America. Delightful fucking romp. One of my favorite moments, hands down, was I guess I don't want to spoil it, but there is a fucking use of a Prince song, not an obscure Prince song, but a fantastic Prince song that as they started the performance, I was like, are you serious? And then not only did they do like the, because it's a handoff song where sometimes a woman sings, sometimes it's Get Off. They did fucking Get Off, and they did the rap part as well, which I was like, it was stunning. So the whole fucking thing was absolute joy and fun. I don't know what the internet's saying about it because personally I'm too old to give a shit if people are unhappy and shit. I was incredibly happy. It just filled me with joy watching the fucking thing, man. It didn't occur to me that Coming to America wasn't rated PG-13 until afterwards. Like, I was
it's
like,
an R movie.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the only things I remember about it being R are like the royal penis is clean, sir, and she was topless, and Eddie Murphy being like, yes, fuck you too. But generally speaking, that never occurs to me like as a hard R rated R movie. So the PG-13 that we saw for Coming to America, I didn't bump into at all. I think Craig Brewer did a fantastic job. I mean, he was not the guy who made the original. He was a fucking infant when that was going on, or fucking like in single digits, maybe 10 or whatever the fuck, 'cause that was like 30 years ago. The original was John Landis, but I thought this stood shoulder to shoulder with it. Now, for anybody that's like, fuck you, blah, 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 I can't be as good as Coming to America, give it 30 fucking years. Like, we all loved Coming to America when it came out, but it wasn't like an instant classic. It's earned that shit over multiple viewings, multiple years and stuff. Will this have the exact same legacy? Probably not. The world doesn't work the way that it used to. That being said, it's a welcome addition to, what is now the Eddie Murphy universe, as they're trying to pull in. I read an article where they were talking about what was it? The Clumps. He talked about at one scene, he was going to have the Clumps do a cameo. And then he was like, it was just way too expensive. But like, Eddie's trying to Eddie Murphy verse it, man, which I think is kind of fun. What were your thoughts? You watch?
I did watch. I didn't love it as much as you did. But I also
a shock, Mark.
What a surprise. But I think that it functions and it delivers on the nostalgia you have for the first movie quite a bit. But there's the thing that I love about the first movie. It's incredibly sweet, and Eddie Murphy is playing a character who is willing to learn and like aggressively kind of push the boundaries of what's expected of him. And I feel like Akeem in this movie has kind of gone the other way, whereas Akeem has gotten very sedentary in his opinions and his beliefs and needs to be shocked into something resembling progression, right? Where it's, part of this whole story is he's only had daughters and he's got 3 daughters, but he needs a son to take over as the king of Zamunda, which is very based in sort of a patriarchal traditional society. Whereas in the first movie, he's all about bucking the tradition and the rituals and so forth and so on. But the thing that I guess bothered me a little bit about the second one, the first movie is very much poking fun at what it means to be Black American, what it means to be African American. The Zamundans have it all figured out. And then he gets to the States, and then the jokes are, look at Eric LaSalle's hair and the soul glow on the couch, and look at the weird caricatures in this church, and look at the kind of shallowness of some of these people, except for Lisa, who seems to be, has her head screwed on right. Like the bougie new money of the McDowells versus the old money and some sort of wisdom of the Jaffers. Whereas this movie sort of pokes fun at the Africans, and like you're the ones who don't quite understand how the world should work. Luckily, we have this family from Queens who can come in and offer some insight to it. And just that sort of evolution felt a little backwards to me. And that's purely just me as a viewer. As always, your mileage may vary. But I think that there's much to like in it. I think there's moments in this movie where Eddie just leans into being regal and delivers a sort of Eddie Murphy that I haven't seen before. And it's actually kind of welcome. It's like, dude, you're actually a really good dramatic actor. And like, you could do this if you wanted to do this. And then there are moments, Wesley Snipes was having the most fun of anybody I've ever seen, ever.
It's so much fun to watch him do. I read an interview with him where they were like, like, how'd you do it so funny or whatever? He's like, I was playing dramatic.
That's all I do.
Yes.
But yeah, like I liked it quite a bit, but I do think that there was some level of sort of heart that was missing and a little bit of awareness that was missing. But that is just for me. I had a lovely time watching it on a Saturday night with the family because it goes down way easy.
It really does. And like, I'm so glad that Amazon, this was a Paramount picture that they were going to release in theaters and stuff. And then Amazon came along and snapped it up. Good for them because it's a great acquisition. Who the fuck isn't going to watch it? And,
hell yeah.
And probably benefits as well from, home viewing as opposed to like, I fucking got dressed up and had to go to a movie theater and fucking, it wasn't the experience I had 30 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like it softens the curve a bit as well. But oh my God, I had such a good time watching it.
For sure.
All right. We got a show for you tonight, kids. We got some WandaVision, of course, to get into the series finale, sadly.
Although maybe our guest can shed a little light on whether that's true.
Might be able to do that. We'll hold on to our guest for a second until we talk about, or tonight we got a sponsor, folks, 2 sponsors. The first of which are our good friends at NativeDEO.com, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard us talk about Native before. You know why? Because we don't like to stank. Right before I did this show, I went and took a shower, put Native all over my body, worked my bosoms and stuff like that. Native everywhere. I smell like Native right now. You smell that lavender? Of course you can.
Ooh, lavender.
Yeah, it's fucking there, man. Native lives in my shower, ladies and gentlemen, and not just because they do ads on the show and whatnot. My wife buys Native behind my back, not even knowing that we do ads. I was watching a YouTube video in the room before, and the guy was doing a spot, and he mentioned fucking Native and stuff. And my wife goes, oh, we have Native. I said, Native pays for this house. Without that Native money, you'd be out on the streets, I says. Without them sponsoring Fat Man Beyond. I said, you drop down your knees, you give thanks to Native. She says, I do, with or without the money, because it's a fine product. She just loves it. And so since she buys it and puts it in the shower, that's what I fucking use, man. I used to be a bar soap guy, kids. Fucking lather it up with a goddamn bar of soap. Now I get my soap. It's called the body wash. That's what it's called now, Mark. Soap is now body wash, and Native makes 3 different body washes that are in my shower that I alternate throughout the days, man. I'm just saying, I actually use this product. I can vouch for it. What about you?
I am surprised that there was never a Prince album called Body Wash. Because that sounds like just the right kind of clean dirty.
Why was that guy such a slacker who accomplished nothing? He could have had an album called Body Wash.
He could have. But listen, Native DEO, it's awesome. You're smelling like lavender today. They got 10 different scents, including classics and rotating seasonals, including like coconut and vanilla, most popular, Kev's favorite, lavender and rose, cucumber and mint, citrus and herbal musk. I want to smell herbal musky, and hey, if you're more into your own natural scent, they have an unscented option that will still keep you from stinking.
That's the important part of this equation, kids. Take away all the fanciness. Nobody wants to stink. Nobody wants to offend. We all want to be able to stand amongst our peers and whatnot, not have them be like, you smell like shit. Native, they're the ones who make sure that'll never happen to you, man. NativeDEO.com is the address you go to. Isn't there some sort of promotional code?
There is indeed. NativeDEO.com/Fatman, or use the promo code Fatman at checkout. Get 20% off your first order.
Don't drink it. Don't pour it in your eyes. Pour it on your head and your body. Wash it up, man. You will smell amazing. We love Native. We thank Native for being proud sponsors of Fat Man Beyond. NativeDEO.com/Smodcast, ladies and gentlemen. Go Smodcast. What was it? Fat Man. Fat Man.
The hat's too tight.
It really is. I forgot where I was. I went back in time for that one.
You did. /Fatman, or use a promo code Fatman at checkout for 20% off your first order.
NativeDEO.com. Stop stanking. All right. Shall we dive in? Right before Thursday night, of course, at fucking 12:01, I was refreshing over and over and over on Disney Plus. Because the last few weeks, man, if you hit it at midnight, there's been not a queue, but like a slow, like.
It broke the internet.
I guess so. Everyone's been hitting it at once. So it was a little frustrating. But bam, once it began, I dove in and I watched that episode 3 times before I went to bed that night. Bawled each time, harder and harder each time I watched it. I watched it just after I took my shower. I was laying on the bed drying, and so I'm going to rewatch it before we talk about it tonight. And probably one of the most moving fucking things I've ever seen in my life. Spoilers, kids. We're going to spoil the fuck out of WandaVision, particularly the series finale. One of the most moving things I ever watched in my life in any entertainment whatsoever, movie, TV show, comic book, any media, even a song, is watching fucking Vision and Wanda say goodbye. When he sees that fucking wall coming and he knows the end is near, and he's just like, we have said goodbye before, so it stands to reason. And she's like, we'll say hello again. I'll live my entire life. I'll never write something as fucking beautiful as that. So incredibly fucking profoundly beautiful. As we learned at the end of all this, of course, going into it, we suspected this is a series about fucking grief. And it absolutely was. It was about grief. It was about closure. And we got a lot of that for that final episode, man. Not only did we get to see a Marvel witch battle in the sky, which was stellar. Not only did we get to see Vision battle the White Vision, straight out, imagery straight out the comics. We got to see a battle that didn't end with just people beating the shit out of each other. We got to see a battle of the minds. It wasn't even a battle. It was a philosophical discussion. That was like a Star Trek fight. Like at one point, all of a sudden they stopped talking, fighting, and they started having a conversation. And the conversation was about as gripping as any fight they could have presented. I don't care how well they could have presented it. Who knew that the series finale of WandaVision would be predicated on the ship of Theseus? Like, what a delight as it happened. This entire series has been a delight, and it gave you some things you were hoping it was, and then gave you a bunch of things you didn't know were coming. Some folks on the internet, of course, ran rampant with theories and then felt disappointed, I guess, to some degree when their theories didn't come true. I operate in a completely different way. I eat what's given to me, and what was given to me was one of the most sumptuous fucking banquets I've ever enjoyed in my life. Like, aside from just the personal satisfaction of how enjoyable WandaVision was for me, somebody who grew up with these characters, somebody who literally collected and had mail away sent to him a subscription to Vision and the Scarlet Witch series for Marvel years ago. I would get it in a plain brown fucking wrapper. So naturally I got some
pornography,
just like Playboy, Mark. naturally I had some skin in the game. I've loved these movies since they've been doing them and stuff. And then when I got the hint from the trailers what it was, I was like, this is going to be my jam. So I was pre-programmed to like this a little bit. All they had to do was not drop the ball. Not only did they execute properly, they fucking elevated, made something singular for the ages and stuff. But again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This show ultimately is about how important it is to find someone to watch TV with in this world. And I watched this whole fucking thing with the person that I watch TV with, somebody who doesn't normally go for this sort of thing, isn't a Marvel zombie like myself, can't quote this shit chapter and verse. So I suspected this would work on me. The fact that my wife was bawling by the season finale, by the series finale and whatnot, by the cheering out loud as if we were in a fucking movie theater, as if, once Wanda moves over, the camera moves and reveals the runes written behind Wanda on the walls of the hex. My wife's over there going, clapping just like I would and shit in a movie theater. And to elicit that kind of response from what I would consider to be a non-consumer, look, we got no other term for that, but Jeff's kiss, ladies and gentlemen. Absolute Jeff's kiss. Your thoughts, sir?
I have been critical of this show, and I feel like it would be disingenuous to say that I hadn't been. But I think a thing that I learned, especially watching Lost, is that there are any number of questions that a show can ask, and it is not, to a certain degree, responsible for answering all of them beyond the emotional truth at its core. And I think that at the end of this series, there were things that people in the audience, myself included, were sort of chasing, like rabbit holes we all kind of ran down. But by the end of it, that idea of dealing with grief in a very real way and learning that the only way out is through, and that for Wanda, it needed to be the resolution of this show needed to be emotional, and it needed to be those two people, and it needed to be a goodbye. And what's the context for that goodbye? What's the portrayal of that farewell? And what does it mean to her to have to finally let the guard down and understand what she's feeling and process it and deal with it and move past it? And so to get that final sequence between the two of them, to get the putting your kids to bed one last time, to get which I very much dug, the turning off the light, which is sort of a classic, it's the cheers, like we're turning off the light in the bar, one last time. But then Vision is unwilling to turn that light off because he wants one last look. I think all of those things land with so much heart and so much empathy that, at the end of the day, we watch television because the characters are the ones leading us through it. And it's not about the Easter eggs that you hoped you would get or the story revelations you hoped you would get. It's about these characters and their mission and their journey and how they resolve it at the end. And this ending felt right to me. It felt rewarding to me. And it felt like the ending, it felt like the landing you wanted to have. It's a little bit bumpy at times because emotions are bumpy, and it's a little bit fraught because emotional journeys are always a bit fraught. But I think there's a grace with which it ended that made, for me, the ride worthwhile.
I'll tell you what, right now, shy of Tony Stark himself, Wanda Maximoff may be the best developed character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, granted, they've had a lot more time to tell her story, but just as compelling, if not more compelling, than Tony's story at this point. And when you look at the movie, and that has everything, all hats off to WandaVision, because I watched that YouTube video where they're like, all Wanda's clips, and it ain't 2 hours. It's fucking 25, 35 minutes or something like that. So throughout the movies, just enough details, sketchy details about this character. And then they took this entire wonderful series to shade her in, to add dimension, add color. And the story's not done. They just kind of reintroduced us to Wanda Maximoff as the Scarlet Witch. I thought it was so cute that in the series at one point, Hayward's asking about doesn't she have a fucking funny name or she don't have a funny name? Just so that everyone knew, nobody calls her the Scarlet Witch. Just one more time before we head into this, nobody calls her the Scarlet Witch, so that by the time you get to the second to last episode, and fucking Agatha is just like, that makes you the Scarlet Witch. Suddenly everybody's like, oh, fuck. That means something more than it would have normally fucking meant. This series gave us Catherine Hahn, an incredible addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Almost like a Lady Loki at this point, man. You hope that they keep bringing her back. And based on her last interaction with Wanda, it seems like she can go back to her. She knows exactly where she is, so she can come back playing and then have magic conversations with her. Boy, they leaned into magic in a big bad way, man. I mean, they've done it before with Doctor Strange and stuff, but like watching a witch fight in the skies, and I thought in terms of the look of it, like, we were essentially in the third act of an action movie with this final episode. And we've seen third acts of Marvel movies before, and they're very fucking big, and there's lots of things going on at once, different storylines to tie up. I thought for, something that was sold as a series, this was about as cinematic as it fucking gets. Felt like a movie. Felt like I could have been watching that on the big screen, not at home on, my equally big screen, or watching on a laptop. I have a big screen at home, no brag. I don't mean to brag. But it felt cinematic, I guess, for lack of a better description. I saw, I put up a tweet where I was crying and shit like that, and I kind of quasi-quoted the show where I said, we'll meet again. Goodbye, WandaVision. We'll meet again, or whatever the fuck. Then, of course, I put that up on Instagram and Twitter. Many fuckers attacked me for, being all emotional and shit like that. My point to them was I wasn't even smoking weed all last week because I had the periodontal surgery. So I watched that show clean, bro. There wasn't a THC molecule bouncing around my fucking body anymore. I watched that shit just as crisp as you or JC, fucking squares, all normie, not fucking with the, fucking devil's cabbage and shit like that. So I watched it completely straight up, so much so that you could never be like, he smokes too much weed and cries everything. So I was a hate tank without my weed. Like, I was in the opposite position. I should have been like, fuck this and fuck her and fuck all this. Instead, it absolutely captured my imagination, melted my heart. And so I was crying. I put up a picture and I was quick to point out, hey man, like that's not even high Kevin Smith crying. That's just how fucking beautiful this show is. It was everything I wanted to be. And then some fuckers wrote dissertations about like, you suck. And I'm like, well, I know people have been telling me that for 27 years, but why do you think so today? And their point, Mark, was that I don't have enough critical thinking to properly enjoy a thing, because only with critical thinking would I see the flaws and hence not enjoy it as much. This logic makes no sense to me whatsoever. They're like, your problem is you like it too much. You need to not like it as much as you like. And their point was like, with all the Marvel things I like I'm just not discerning or whatever the fuck. And now just because I love a thing don't mean that I can't, fucking pick on and be like, hey, this coulda, or they coulda, or blah, blah, blah. But that's not enough for me to change an opinion of a thing. Like I found this incredibly sweeping. I'm not just a guy who like loves superhero shit. I fucking tell stories for a living, man. I know how the sausage is made and shit. So when you see me caught up in it, like one of two things, either I'm an idiot, which I probably am, or two, even the magician gets fucking moved. Even the magician buys into that fucking act and is like, holy shit, where'd the rabbit come from? That's how good they are at their jobs over there at Marvel. And WandaVision, no exception. Like I wish now almost this was the model going forward. Fuck 2-hour movies. You give me 8-9 hours of a character that I could really dive into and fucking get to know deeper and love and shit. The stakes. Oh my God, fucking everything about it was just so perfectly attuned to me. Almost like it was made for me and stuff. And then what I found out as we watched it, and you watch the world fall in love with it as well, it wasn't made for me. It was made for everybody. Everybody could groove on this shit now. I just don't understand why somebody would be like, no. You got to rethink this so that you don't like it as much. Why the fuck would I ever do something like that? That's like madness to me. So, for anybody that's like, where's the critical thought about it? I don't have any. It's that simple. Like, I love a thing. I love a fucking thing. And this thing I love. And all of these Marvel things I love. And maybe there'll be one day where I hit one of them where I'm like, I don't give so much a fuck about this. It could be the Eternals. It was never going to be WandaVision. I'll tell you that much right now. The moment they announced that shit, I was like, oh my God, I'm half in the bag for this. All they have to do is not drop the ball. And not only do they execute, they fucking elevated. But like, the Eternals, I'm not like fucking like, oh, I grew up with it. So that'll be up to them to charm me over. But they've done it before with Guardians of the Galaxy twice. I went into that Marvel movie not giving a fuck. And I walked out going, Jesus, even this. So like, I'm telling you, man, if you're looking for somebody to like pull the strings and fucking be, like remotely, fucking, well, I don't like it because of X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry, kids. I'm not the guy. I'm fucking 50 years old. The only things I'll talk about are the things that I deeply fucking love, the things that move me, the things that I think are fucking powerful. Now, does that mean I love everything? Fuck no. But you will never hear me talk about the shit that I don't like. Why bother? There's no time. It was like fucking reading that person's reaction. Like, he needs to be more critical. I'm like, why? So that I can be as fucking bitter and obtuse and not like something like you? Let me like a thing. I like it because I like it. Like fucking, especially something well made. And I don't think I got to convince anybody that like, give WandaVision the benefit of the doubt. This fucking epic storytelling, great fucking TV in the making. We got to watch it fucking happen live with characters and IP that we've fallen in love with over the course of 10 years in fucking movies. So I'm sorry, kids. If you want somebody to like, pick at shit, talk to that guy over there. He's happy. You heard what he said about coming to America. Oh my God.
That's the dynamic of this partnership, you guys.
Yes. You want the truth? He can handle the truth. My truth is this, man.
I'm bad cop.
Yes, he's the bad cop. I don't even know that I'm the good cop. According to the internet, Mark, I'm the tasteless cop. The cop who just likes it all and shit like that. No filter whatsoever. But let me tell you, man, I almost died a few years ago. So I know one day I am going to die. And when I leave this world, you know what's not going to make me feel good? Going like, I'm sure glad I fucking told them what I thought of that shit. That ain't good. What's going to make me feel good? I'm telling you, if somebody told me you're going to fucking die in 24 hours, I would do a lot of things, try to pack a lot of living. One of the only things that I would make sure I'd do before I left this world is watch that ending scene for fucking WandaVision. Not the ending scene, but like the moment where he's like fucking, so you can tell he's scared because fucking death is coming. It was like crazy emotional when he was just like, we've said goodbye before, so it stands to reason. And she's like, we'll say hello again. And she's all teary and shit like that. Profoundly fucking beautiful. Profoundly beautiful. And you don't get moments like that without a studied fucking hand behind it. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we got a guest, someone who not only knows a little bit about WandaVision, but without him, there is no fucking WandaVision. A name that we hated the entire series of WandaVision because every time that name came up, we were like, fuck, because it meant the episode was over. Now we bring that name up and praise that name because he took us on such an amazing journey and gave us something I'll never forget. I'll be watching this till the end of time. I'll still, I got Disney Plus now forever. I'll still be popping by to watch like that fucking last scene or to watch, Agatha be like, you're that's chaos magic, Wanda. And that makes you the Scarlet Witch. I'll be best of hitting it just same way you go through your favorite album and play the tunes that you like. I'll be doing that with this show forever. And that has everything to do with the directorial hand behind it. Give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for our guest tonight, the great Matt SHAKMAN.
Hello.
Welcome, sir. Welcome. And congratulations. I told Matt before he came on the show tonight, I was like, good Lord, prepare to be overblown because it's nothing but fucking love for this. Just to give credit how we got here, Jeremy Simpson, who I was lucky enough to work with on the CW shows up north when I did Flash and Supergirl, he's a storyboard artist. And, whenever they were like, you got to sit down with Jeremy and do storyboards, I was all right. So I sit down with Jeremy and be like, draw whatever you want, man. I'll just shoot that. He goes, what, are you kidding me? I was like, yeah, I mean, that's how, go ahead, just draw some shit. I was like, got no vision. If it were up to me, we wouldn't be doing this anyway. So you might as well draw some shit. Jeremy Simpson, if you look at my episodes of Supergirl and Flash, The action sequences, like I hand it to him every once in a while. I have changed something to make it work in the real world and stuff. But he has such a great eye for fucking storytelling, particularly in that genre. I was more than happy to be like, do your thing. And so he told me at one point years ago, he's like, I got a buddy, man. I just did storyboards for fucking Game of Thrones. And I said, what? How the fuck do you do it for Game of Thrones? He's like, I know a guy who directed some episodes and shit. You're that guy. Isn't that right?
I'm that guy. Yeah.
Which episodes? There were 2. What episodes of Game of Thrones did you direct?
2 in season 7. One called Spoils of War, where Daenerys attacks the Lannister army. They're trying to bring back the spoils from Highgarden. And it's sort of the first big dragon battle in the show. And she destroys the entire army and takes the Tarleys captive. And then I did the one after that called Eastwatch, which sort of sets up their trip north. So
they shoot them. Do they shoot them in like what do they call that? Like when
block shooting?
Block. Yeah. Is that why you did 2, or you did 1 and then wound up doing another one where they're close together?
I did them together, but all the directors on that show were there at the same time. So we would start prep. I think I started prep in July and I finished at the end of February, something like that. And so we would shoot bits and pieces of multiple episodes throughout the whole time. And they had 2 to 3 units going, and that was a huge enterprise. But yeah, you could work 6 days a week. You could work 2 days a week, sort of depending on your show and what you were doing.
Now, for those unfamiliar, let me just walk them through your CV here, man, because my God, fucking, you go way back. 2002 is your first directorial credit on Once and Again?
Yeah.
Coming out of film school, how do you get that job?
Great question. Now, because of Ed Zwick and Marshall Herskovitz, who are great filmmakers, producers, directors, creators. And I was running a tiny small theater in Los Angeles on Pico Boulevard that I had started called the Black Dahlia Theater. We were doing new plays. And I did this play about Orson Welles. And I think maybe because it was about Orson Welles, a lot of people in LA were interested. They came out and they called me up the next day on my old answering machine. I was checking ticket reservations, and there was this message from Ed Zwick saying, I loved your play. Come on down. I'd like to meet with you. So I met with Ed and Marshall, and I ended up shadowing on that show, observing, sort of seeing how things worked. And that was my film school. They were my film school, basically, Ed and Marshall. And they gave me an episode of that show right towards the end of it, right before it went down. And then I went and I shadowed Ed on The Last Samurai right after that, and hung around and saw them put together a big movie, which by the time I was doing Game of Thrones a decade later was hugely valuable because I had seen horse charges and all that stuff done before. So I learned a lot from those guys, especially Ed. Yeah.
I was wondering, because looking at your resume, it's like, oh, there's a lot of there's a whole mess of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia's. And that seems like the trajectory from that to dragon battles seems particularly difficult to mount. But clearly from the jump, you had some mentors who knew how to get that done.
This is my take on it. And, I'm sure Matt's not going to blow his own horn, but my experience in the world of television, very limited, Mark, but I've seen a bit here or there. There are directors, journeyman directors who go throughout this industry and do a lot of things and whatnot. And a lot of TV directing, episodic directing. The only reason you work as much as this cat has worked is because people like the work and they like being around that director. Otherwise, you don't have, listen to this list of shows, kids. Ready? You got Once and Again, Still Life, Oliver Bean, 3 episodes. Remember that? Summerland, Judging Amy, Huff, One Tree Hill. You're like the Forrest fucking Gump of TV of the last 20 years, bro. Boston Legal, 6 Feet Under. Which 6 Feet Under did you do?
Towards the end, the one where Peter Krause's character, Nate, has a stroke. Narm, and he falls down. Yeah.
Wow, man. That's like a lifetime ago, too. Inconceivable. Yeah. Kitchen Confidential. How do you direct Kitchen Confidential?
Bradley Cooper, man, before he became the world's biggest star. Yeah, he was the star of that show. It was great. It was based on the memoir.
God, that's right. Everwood, Windfall, Men in Trees. You did 4 episodes of Everwood.
Yeah.
You worked on Everybody Hates Chris, 2 episodes of that. What About Brian, The Riches, The Nine, Brothers and Sisters, 3 episodes. Whose show is that? Is that Berlanti or no?
Yeah, he came in. Yeah, it started out with John Robin Bates, who created it, and then Berlanti came in and joined up with him.
Ugly Betty, 3 episodes. Hung. Which episode of Hung did you do? I love
the one with the big dick.
Yeah.
It was a basketball game, if I remember right.
I remember that episode.
A while ago, yeah.
Weeds, Chuck, Children's Hospital, I fucking love, man. I mean, because, it's one thing to do an hour-long drama. Children's Hospital is like, fucking bizarre short frame storytelling as well. So you mastered that as well. The Good Guys, Outsourced, Breaking In, Happy Endings, House. He did 5 episodes. What's that guy like?
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah, fantastic guy.
Everyone seems to like him. New Girl, Raising Hope, Mad Men. Which Mad Men did you do?
You know, one that divided people. It was when the show ended, it was like equally on the list of everyone's favorite episode and also everyone's most hated episode. It was called Mystery Date. It's where Draper has he's having a fever dream and he murders Machen Amick and like shoves her under the bed. It's a bit of a horror film type.
Yeah, I remember that episode. Oh, yeah. Man, huge. GCB, Psych, you did 5 episodes. Cut Bank, Fargo, which season? You did 2 episodes.
First season, the last 2. Yeah.
Hey, man. Revenge, I watched all that. My wife loved that. 4 episodes. Grace and Frankie, man, what were they like?
They were great. Oh, yeah. Huge heroes of mine. And, you know, Martin Sheen also, too. Sam Waterston, everybody in that show was great.
Is there a different curve with when you have a cast that's like over 70 and shit? Like, can you work at the same pace that you normally do?
Oh my God. Yeah. You got to work hard to keep up with Jane Fonda, man. She is the hardest working person in showbiz.
That's true. She's a better champ than all of us. Yeah. You're the Worst, The Good Wife, 6 episodes. American Gothic, It's Always Sunny, as Mark mentioned, but this is the number. Ready? 43 episodes. Did you do them all essentially?
God, no, that is the longest running live action comedy in history now, season 14. So I have done a lot of them, but not even half.
How early did you get in with them?
Season 3.
Fucking A, man. Okay, and then how, as Mark mentions, how do you go from fucking Sunny to Game of Thrones? Where's that connection?
Actually, very direct in a strange way. I had met David Benioff in about 2007 because he was producing a Western that I was attached to direct. So Westerns, there was my set piece in Game of Thrones was basically a big Western battle. And so we had already talked about material like that. And I knew and liked him a lot. And that movie almost happened. It was kind of a heartbreaker. It had James McAvoy attached right after Atonement, and it was for Focus under Seamus. It was right at the sort of high point of what Focus was doing, really great movies. And I was so excited. And I kind of knew, gosh, if this thing goes down, I'm gonna be heartbroken forever. And McAvoy, we got him on a horse to train because it's a Western. And it turns out he had a massive anaphylactic reaction to the horse. He was allergic to horses. And I'm allergic to everything.
It's going to be a Western.
Do not drop out of this movie. Allow me to find you some way to do this. So I searched the world and I found this thing called a Bashkir curly horse, which is basically looks like a My Little Pony for half the year and then a real horse the other half of the year. And it's hypoallergenic. So I was like, I'm going to get James McAvoy on this horse. We arranged it. It was in London. Everything went great for an hour. And then the owner of the horse was like, these horses are amazing. Just go ahead, rub your face in its mane. Go ahead, rub your face in its mane. And James rubbed his face in the mane. And then I got a picture of him with his eyes all swollen up being like, sorry. And the movie went down. Anyway, so I met Benioff that way. I'd known him over the years. So proud of him and what he had created. But he was really good friends with the creators of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, especially Rob McElhenney. And he ended up coming and doing a cameo for us on Sunny, playing both of them, actually. Benioff and Weiss did cameos in this episode about a water park. And I got to reconnect with them. It was great. And then, they just at that time were looking for a director, and it happened to be something that was similar material to Staked Plains. And the Sunny guys were like, you should hire Matt. And so it ended up working out okay. And then we pranked Rob McElhenney really hard during Game of Thrones that year, where Rob was checking in, how's Matt doing? And Benioff was like, it's rough. Any advice on how to work with him? They just started telling this horrible story about how I was failing, and Rob was freaking out and trying to call me. And anyway, he'll never forgive me for that. But that's how I ended up there. Yeah.
Amazing, man. Let me ask you though, in terms of, that would be the most expensive thing you'd ever shot at that point, right?
Without a doubt, yeah.
Was it intimidating, that aspect of it? It's one thing to shoot I'm sure it's not It's Always Sunny budget, probably nothing to sneeze at, but I would imagine
tiny. Yeah.
Tiny. I imagine Game of Thrones is like quantum leap forward. Was there fear? Were you trepidatious at all?
I was just so excited to be there. I loved that show up to that point. I was thrilled to be a part of it. And the script was amazing. And those guys are amazing. The whole crew there was fantastic. So it was just a pleasure, and I guess I'm not smart enough to be afraid. So I just went at it with passion and excitement and just tried to make the best story I could. So
I would imagine, like, when you're talented, there is no fear whatsoever. All right. So you got Billions. You did an episode, Strange Angel. The Boys. Which Boys episode you do?
Number 2, the second one. It's this guy, Transparent or Translucent, who they
the very second episode, or after the pilot, the Dan's pilot or whatever.
Dan did the pilot. We were overlapping. He was finishing that up. Yep.
Fucking A, man. Then Succession. Which Succession episode you do?
This last season, the second season, it's called Our Gesties. They go to a kind of a rich person getaway, kind of right.
It's a really good episode with the comic and stuff.
Yeah.
Episode of The Great, and then 9 episodes of WandaVision. So take us into that. How does one get a job? And obviously not a tutorial, but when did it happen? When were you involved in the process? Did you, like the rest of us, first hear about WandaVision, or were you involved from the moment somebody said that word?
Great question. It's what I had been away from my family, from my newborn daughter, to do Game of Thrones. It was a huge opportunity, and I'd gone away. And the one thing I was sort of afraid of was it worth it to have left my wife and daughter for all this time? And I was worried about how people would receive the episode, because the fans of Game of Thrones were ferocious, and everyone watched at the same time. And my wife was like, what would make it worth it for you? Because I was fretting that it wouldn't have been worth it if people didn't like it. I said, well, I don't know. If Kevin Feige calls tomorrow, it'll be worth it. And he didn't call the next day, but I think it was a few days later that I got this, call to go in and meet with him. So that was awesome. And I got a chance to meet with him and some of the other amazing leadership over there at Marvel. And then they brought me in on one project after that to sort of pitch on before WandaVision came around. And then I came in,
the first meeting it was a general, like, hey, we like your work, come in and let's talk and see if there's something.
Exactly. Yeah. He had seen the Game of Thrones episode, and it was just a chat, just a general meeting, not about a job in specific. And then I did end up doing sort of one round of pitching on another project of theirs. And then I got invited to come in and pitch on WandaVision. I'd heard vaguely that these Disney Plus shows were coming. I didn't really know much about them. I knew there was a Loki show. I knew there was a show with Wanda and Vision. And they said, yeah, you're going in for the Wanda and Vision show. And I didn't know. I mean, I like those characters a lot, but they've only had about 10 minutes of screen time together. And I'm a big comic fan, but I hadn't been focused on those issues. Unlike you, I didn't get those issues when I was a kiddo. So I came in sort of a bit of an open book on it. And Jack Schaefer, who's the head writer, Mary Lavanos, who is the producer for Marvel, they had already been working for a little bit, kind of starting to break the story and figure out what the world was going to look like. And they pitched me essentially this idea, the hybrid of sitcom, and really telling this story about loss and grief, which is what they had already come up with. And I was so taken with it. It was one of the most amazing things that I had been pitched or heard about, and I was sort of desperate to be a part of it. So I went through the process with them and with Kevin and the rest of them, and eventually got the gig. But it's a strange thing, because you talked about my resume, which is, a weird hodgepodge. And in this business, you usually have very narrow lanes. Like if you're a guy who does house, you do shows like that, and if you do comedies, you do comedies. I come from theater, so I wasn't smart enough again to know that I couldn't do lots of different things. So I was trying to always work on different shows. And so it allowed me to do comedies and dramas and procedurals and action and all that along the way. But now that we're in this streaming world where shows by their nature are so they draw from different tones and genres and styles, and that's what makes it so interesting right now. You mentioned Succession, a show that's a drama, but it's written by very funny people, and that's what makes it so wonderful. So the fact that I have done all these different things all of a sudden, especially with a show like WandaVision, that's about sitcoms, and I used to be a child actor. I grew up on sitcoms, and so I had that experience.
Wait, what?
Yeah, yes. You missed that part of my IMDb that I guess.
What were you on?
Like all the 80s shows, I was on Webster and Different Strokes and Facts of Life. And I was a regular on this show for 3 years that was a spin-off of Growing Pains called Just the 10 of Us. And so I was on that. It was a TJF Friday night show after.
God, yes, you are. Look at this. You were in the fucking Facts of Life.
Yeah, I was.
What season?
Take the good and the bad.
There you go.
Yeah, but who did you play? What season?
I can't remember what season it was. It was Nancy was dating her photography professor, and I was his kid, and it was getting way too serious because he had a kid, and I was the kid.
You were on an episode of Highway to Heaven. You worked with Michael Landon.
Yeah, no, that was the Christmas Carol, and it ran every year for like 20 years. It was like I was Tiny Tim in a wheelchair, the single tier, the whole thing. I worked with Michael Landon. So I started as an actor at 4 years old, and I was in it, all
Different Strokes, Night Court.
Night Court, yeah.
You were on the set of some, and then of course, Growing Pains, Webster, as you mentioned, who was the male star of Just the 10 of Us? Who was
Bill Kirchenbauer. He was a comic.
There he is, yes.
Yep, still is gone.
Oh my God, man, those are some legendary fucking shows. So, while you were working on those shows and you're a kid, were you thinking about like, hey man, there's a job to be done here that's not in front of the camera? Did directing pique your interest?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was that annoying kid that wanted to interview the camera guys and hang out in the room when they were calling the show and ask questions of everybody, how they did, what they did. I always wanted to do that. Yeah. And then I got into theater and then I kind of went back into TV through the directing, through theater, as we already talked about. So this job, this WandaVision job, felt like it was the job that I had been preparing for my entire life because I was a sitcom actor. I direct comedies and sitcoms, and I do action and spectacle. I do dramas. And this show, this crazy, wonderful show, required all of those things.
Did Kevin Feige know about that deep, deep back history of yours as like, oh no, I spent most of my childhood on sets just like this?
I eventually, yes, before I got the job. Yeah, he figured that out. And then when we were doing our virtual press day, because of this weird world that we're in right now, our junket, Jaleel White was our MC for our press junket, which was great. He's an old friend and a fantastic human. And it was great. He began the thing by saying, I bet you guys don't know that Matt and I met doing the pilot of Good Morning, Miss Bliss, and we all got fired, and that show got rebranded as Saved by the Bell, which was true. And I don't think anybody on the show on WandaVision knew that, but we were the original version of Saved by the Bell until we were fired.
Oh my God, man! So you got TV in your blood. You grew up out here?
I did. Yeah, I grew up in Ventura, an hour north.
What do your parents do? How'd you wind up as a kid actor?
Strange story. So I dressed up pretty much exclusively like superheroes, to the point where my, preschool teacher said, you can't do that anymore. It's not healthy or appropriate. I was Spidey with like weird, creepy masks that I made myself with Sharpie drawn, webs on it, which, pre-Columbine was still too creepy for school. But Captain America, Superman, Batman, obviously all of those things, exclusively I dressed up like them. And my dad is a doctor, but he wrote some books and he was on a talk show circuit, and I would go with him dressed up in whatever superhero of the day. And I got discovered at one of those to do a commercial, and that was the beginning of everything. Yeah, they thought I was super outgoing because I was in my world of the imagination. I'm not super outgoing. I just pretend to be when I have to be, especially when I'm wearing a superhero outfit. Helps.
Now, what was different about this than most series director gigs is like generally it seems in series the max amount of episodes you'll do back to back is like 2 or something like that. But you directed every episode. Was that always the plan going in, like one director for everything, make it like one giant movie?
That is exactly the plan. Yeah, that was what Kevin asked at my final meeting. He said, can you do all of this? And I'd done whole seasons of It's Always Sunny. So I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, one director can do this. It's a big job. And I would probably be not as quick to say yes if that question were asked me again. But that was what he wanted to do. And what they at Marvel wanted to do is that they had made a lot of movies. They knew how to make movies. This was their first television show, and they wanted to make it like a movie. So they wanted to have one director, and that's what they did for Loki, for Falcon and Winter Soldier, and for us. I think some of the shows after that, they've gone to maybe 2 directors splitting it up, 3 directors splitting it up. Yeah.
Now, in this world, where particularly with this storyline, there's block shooting is when you got a bunch of episodes of a TV show and, hey, we're going to be in the kitchen 96 times. Shouldn't we do all the kitchen scenes at once? But with WandaVision, since the the era changed with every episode. Did you finish an episode, start an episode, finish an episode, start an episode, or was it more fluid than it would have appeared?
A bit of both. And it felt like we were doing a pilot for every episode.
That's what I would imagine. Like you're almost starting from scratch with the new set and everything.
Yeah. And we prioritized the sitcoms. So we did them earlier, or at least the interiors. We started in Atlanta when we were on stage. We could build all those sets, and we ended in Los Angeles. And I wanted to be in LA for some portion of the shooting because I wanted to shoot on backlots. I wanted to have that weird fake real combination that you get from shooting at a big backlot, town square or street. So we shot their house, which is on the Warner Brothers Ranch, which I'm sure you've been to. There's a whole little cul-de-sac of famous sitcom houses there with Bewitched House, I Dream of Jeannie, Partridge Family, etc. And you can't find that out in the real world. It actually takes so much production design to make a real street feel that unreal. And then we shot at the Disney Ranch, which is way out in Santa Clarita, for their town square and a few other things out there. So most of the sitcom interiors were done early in our process because it was the most detail-oriented work that we were doing. I mean, the action stuff is detail-oriented, of course, but it was so precise in terms of tone and style that I really wanted to focus on that and make sure that we got that right up front. So we did a whole sitcom boot camp with the actors. We studied different sitcoms over the years to figure out the different approaches. And then we started with the 50s, and then we moved into the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. So we did shoot chronologically on stage for those interiors as much as we could.
Why was it important for you guys to shoot in front of a live studio audience?
Because that's what they did. That was always sort of the governing principle. This is Wanda's reality. She's created all of this because of her own deep love of television, the same way that I love those shows as well. And as you've seen in the penultimate episode, we see how she would gather with her family. So this is a woman who can create reality. That's what chaos magic is. It's creating something of whole cloth. And so early on, those first few episodes, they had to be perfect and accurate, not only just because I was trying to honor something, but because I was trying to live up to what Wanda Maximoff would create, which was perfection, right? And so the Dick Van Dyke Show, I Love Lucy, shot in front of a live studio audience, and you can feel it. It's like theater. I'm a theater director too. I run this, the Geffen Playhouse here in Los Angeles. I do a lot of theater, and it's, you can feel the energy of it. You can feel that lightning in a bottle quality. We went to lunch with Dick Van Dyke right before we started shooting, just to kind of pick his brain. I went with Kevin Feige, and we went to Club 33 at Disneyland. It was like one of the most unreal, most amazing afternoons of my life. But I talked to him about it. And one of the things that I learned is that they pretty much only filmed it once in front of a studio audience. Unlike, I'm sure you guys have been to a sitcom taping. The MC is there being like, I know you've seen it 40 times, laugh like you've never seen it before, right? They didn't do that. They did it like a play. They filmed it all the way through. They didn't repeat it. And pretty much what you see of the Dick Van Dyke Show is the one and only time they put it on, like a stage play, opening and closing the night all at once. And you can feel that energy. You can feel that spark. And they would only do a pickup if something went terribly wrong. So we tried to do that too, as much as we could. Obviously, once it breaks into kind of Twilight Zone, it changes. It was the first thing we did, and it was a great way to bond too with the actors.
Was there ever a temptation to, because you have, the episode where Agatha is sort of tripping through Wanda's memories, and then they reveal that we're on a stage for some of that stuff, and you see the lights and all that. Was there ever the temptation to show the studio audience, to be like, oh no, this was also part of that. There were people here, and here's all the people in the town sitting in the audience, or whatever.
We know it's a great idea. We didn't like sort of a zombieified audience sitting there. No, I loved the idea of Agatha alone as the one spectator who she's been watching Wanda through her life now up to this point, and here she is watching the WandaVision show, revealing as a set. But that is the exact audience. We built that to be historically accurate, brought in our live audience, did the show, and then in the days right after that, we shot that. So because we had that set up.
Now, Marvel famously fucking NDAs, nobody can know shit. How do you pull in a studio audience that doesn't talk?
Unbelievable that they kept that secret. People signed everything. They left their phones. They did all the usual stuff, but we managed to keep that a secret and not Evan Peters. So I don't know, but somehow that worked.
So it wasn't like we just brought friends and family to fill the audience. You actually got real live people.
We did do a lot of friends and family. We did do friends of friends, and sort of, it was not just random people brought off the street in Atlanta. So that did help it for sure.
And so you mentioned two names before, Jack Schaefer, and who's the other?
Mary Lavanos.
And you mentioned story from both of them, but why is one listed as a writer and one as a producer? But
so the way it works at Marvel usually is that Kevin had this idea of combining the sitcom with the story of Wanda and recovering from losing vision. And then that gets handed off to a producer who does early work, sort of kind of looking through all the comics and kind of figuring out what might be the sort of story world that might be explored, right? And then different writers come in, look at that document, kind of pitch on that document their creative take on it. And so Jack pitched her creative take and was hired as the head writer and recruited a wonderful room of amazingly talented writers. She's amazingly talented and a great leader. And she brought together this group of people. And Mary's in on that too as the producer. So she's a creative producer, in that she will have contributions to story as well as helping to make the trains run on time, and remains with the show all the way through. So Jack sort of oversaw that writing, and then Jack and I kind of partnered up in that process. The room was still kind of going, but then I was able to make contributions to story, work through set pieces, have different ideas. And then as you start to get to the end of something like that, you inevitably go back to the beginning and rewrite through it as well, because you're building a bit of a puzzle. You need to go back and address things you might have missed or failed to set up. But Marvel stuff, everything, I'm sure in a universe like this, but especially Marvel stuff, is famous for kind of being constantly broken again and rebuilt. And we did that process a lot in service of trying to get to the best story possible. The rest of the writers in that writer's room ended up sort of heading off before we even started official prep. And then it was Jack and Mary and I during prep working hard together to kind of keep working on the story. And you mentioned Journey Simser, who's a phenomenal storyboard artist. And also there's two others, Richard Bennett and Simeon Wilkins, who I worked with. And so much storytelling comes from storyboarding. I start to work out what these sequences are. They add ideas, we pitch ideas. I'll come up with 15 different versions of how something could play out. And then if we find something that works, we go back, and that's in the script. The episode, the Halloween episode, it used to end just with her exploding out in a power of red. And then the next episode would pick up with Vision waking up in this sword circus. And we thought, well, no, it'd be much more fun to see that happen. So we developed that out with Jeremy, and I developed that out pretty early in the prep process. And then that ends up being in there. So there's a lot of that kind of storytelling through visual design that happens as well.
In those early conversations with Jack, what were because this show is such a tightrope to walk. It's got to balance so much spectacle and emotion and sort of intimate storytelling and the grand scale. What were the things that each of you were concerned about? Like, where did you think, all right, if we don't get this right, this will fail. If we don't get this right, it won't hold up. Like, what were the things you were mindful that you needed to either sidestep or embrace?
Is a great question. I think we always knew that the core story was the story of Wanda grappling with grief, that it was a story of loss. And the flip side of that, the other side of that same coin, is that it's a love story. It's a great love story between two amazing characters, and their love story is so unusual. They couldn't be more different, and yet it feels so right. And it was about trying to honor that love story, and then also talk about how you come back from grief. And we've all lost people. And so intentionally, we looked at the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of grief. And so you get to the finale, which I think to a lot of people, you mentioned earlier, disappointed about whatever Easter eggs. It's inevitable that it would end with acceptance, right? It's about someone who has been in denial about all the loss she has, who's created this sitcom world where she can't even remember how she got there. She doesn't allow herself to know how she got there, ends up accepting it. And along the way, she gets angry, of course, like we just talked about, expands her hex, she bargains. There's all sorts of, so we intentionally structured it that way. And I felt whenever you play with tone and style, if you have a strong emotional through line, that's your spine. And if you always go back to that, everything else can work. And so we knew we were playing chicken with those earlier sitcom episodes. We knew that We were playing with how long would the audience hang in there. And there were some that didn't really want to hang in there. Maybe they came back eventually. People said, no, you should really watch it. And maybe there were some grandparents who initially thought it was charming that when things started to blow up, they were like, we're out. But, you know, what's that Venn diagram of Nick at Night and Marvel? It's very narrow overlap, but I'm in it. You know, Jack Schaefer's in it, Kevin Feige's in it. So we wanted to see how far we could go with that. Now, the pandemic did kind of mess with us a little bit because we originally didn't intend to release the first 3 episodes on the same night, which would give it a slightly different experience, because you would end with Monica's getting expelled from the Hex, and you would see the sword base. And I think for Marvel fans out there, you'd have a little bit more of a sense of what's coming. And we were able to release those 3 for press, but not for the audience, just because I finished that finale a couple weeks ago. We just literally, one more, if we tried to, you know, release the first 3 that week, we would not have made the finale, and Disney Plus didn't want to wait a week.
That reminds me, in terms of shooting so close to airing, well, network TV does that and has done that forever and stuff. But there were moments on this show where when Jimmy Woo's working his whiteboard and he is echoing the same fucking theories that the internet was echoing that week, I was either like, they are incredibly prescient and knew this was coming, or they are so fucking nimble that they could, like, it's just writing on a whiteboard. They could easily put that in the background without affecting a shot. Were you guys ahead of the story, or was that acknowledging the audience?
We were not acknowledging the audience. No, not at all. That was stuff that we shot in Atlanta. That stuff didn't change at all. We intentionally built the puzzle box and then wanted Sword to be the audience stand-in. That was the meta idea of binge watching, which this show came out weekly, so people were also annoyed they couldn't binge watch it. They had to watch it weekly. But, you know, Darcy and Jimmy, they're binge watching the show and becoming fans and watching episode by episode. So we did get lucky in some ways, but then also we didn't get lucky in some ways too, because some of those Easter eggs are absolutely intentional, and then some things, like just trying to clarify what was Monica's plan with regards to the Hex. We did reshoot a little thing there, changed some dialogue, added the aerospace engineer, which was never an intention on our side to set up the Fantastic Four.
You got to be so careful what you say in a Marvel anything, because there is a corresponding character to that job.
Yeah.
And people are like, it's Reed Richards. Like, how fun is that? But then terrifying for the creator of the show, for the director of the show, and the writers and the producers, because you can see somebody taking a thread and running with it and be like, no, come back. Like, we're not going over there. Come over here. The story's over here.
I find that, some of them I find charming and wonderful, and the fan base is so smart and knowledgeable that they can create theories that are better than the ones that we created in the room, of course. But we're building to this rover set piece, which I have worked my butt off on for well over a year, creating this rover. And all of a sudden, everybody wants to know who's going to meet her there. And I know it's going to be this wonderful actress who's playing, Major Goodner. And it's not going to be Reed Richards. And I want people to be invested in what is the origin story of a different character that Monica Rambeau is becoming. And instead we're being distracted by somebody else. So yeah, the director, producer in me is like, oh, don't run with that one. Because I didn't want the focus to shift from what was important. This is a story of Monica traveling through that Hex.
Now, of course, like Marvel famously all over their talent about like, keep your mouth shut, fucking no spoilers. Was there I could go out there and tell them it's not Reed Richards, but what was the party line? They're like, don't say anything. Like, what was as a storyteller, I would be wanting to cover my ass and be like on the internet every day going, it ain't Reed Richards. Just get that out of your head now.
I didn't.
Correct.
I did not do press before that episode. So I was not in that position. So I'm not sure. But in general, it's, let things go. Don't address the rumors is probably better, because folks will see the episode and they'll get their answers anyway. But there was another one too that was funny. Wanda says kick ass in the Halloween episode. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, some people love that joke. Some people thought, I think one of the reviewers was like, oh, lame, too far. Because Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson are both in kick ass together. Not an intended kick ass, the movie joke at all. Like the little kid says kick ass. There was no scripted response. We were improvising. We wanted to set up that the brother was being a bad influence. And Lizzie was just like, kick ass? And it was funny and we kept it. And it was absolutely not an intentional thing. So there are a few of those. And then there's a lot that are intentional too. So
Can I tell you my favorite?
Sure.
My favorite Easter egg, and it's not a story thing, it's not a plot thing, it's a tone thing. It's, I watch C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All these moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. I was like, oh, that's wonderful. The fact that the marquee has Tannhauser Gate on it, and the idea of an artificial person who's about to die, who's wrestling with the fact that his memories are going to potentially be lost forever. I was like, that I like. Like I don't necessarily want to go down the rabbit hole of like who's that person supposed to be and what cameo we're supposed to get, but it's here's a thing that's just resonant to the story we're telling. Was that your idea? Do you put Tannhauser Gate on there, or was that the writers? Was that the
Mark Worthington, the production designer, and I put that up there. Yeah. No, I'm glad you got that. That's one of my favorite scenes in movies, like Tears in the Rain, Time to Die. Yeah, can't beat that.
That was an incredibly subtle Blade Runner reference as opposed to the very overt Wizard of Oz references, which were wonderful and made me appreciate the Wizard of Oz all over again in many weird ways, because we were dealing with a witchcraft story as well, which was kind of dope and whatnot. When you sit down to direct the first episode, did you have all 9 scripts by that point?
No, I mean, we did have a rough version of all 9 scripts, but they were not accurate to what we ended up shooting. The scripts changed.
It was very much like normal TV then.
Well, yeah, things were constantly changing and getting rebroken. Story was changing, especially a lot of the real world stuff and the finale. There was a lot of experimentation going on and sort of trying different things out. We also at one point had 10 episodes planned, and we ended up collapsing a couple, just to make the rhythm feel a little bit better. But yeah, so they constantly changed. And then of course, once we wrapped in Atlanta, the pandemic hit and we ended up having months off. So then further changes happened during that. We were doing post-production, and then ideas would come up and little changes would happen as a result.
I think I saw one in the series finale. It's her line when she's like, I don't understand this power, but I will. There was a look of it that made it look different than the 2 other shots. And it looked like a digital recomposition or whatever. And it looked like you guys were like, oh shit, nobody referenced this. We have to reference it. Was I wrong, or did you shoot that on the day, or what?
That is something we shot and added later. You're right. Yeah.
And but just like TV does that. And also movies, they do that. Like Marvel movies, it's not like they're like, this is the script is fucking locked and you adhere to it. We know from Endgame that the greatest fucking moment in the movie of him going, and I am Iron Man, came months later, courtesy of the editor, who was like, you know what he should have said? And then Marvel's got enough money and enough balls to be like, well, then that's what he will say and stuff. So it's nice to know that like even an entity as well-oiled a machine as Marvel still is limber enough to like, oh, we can change this. We can move this. We can move this.
Yeah, I think Marvel, I love the pursuit of excellence that they have. They're lovely, wonderful people. They're super supportive of their filmmakers. We had a great time working there, all of us, Jack and myself and the actors, everybody. But they will do like whatever needs to be done to make it even 1% better if they can, if time allows. And so we were working up right to the very end until Disney Plus was like, if you don't give it to us now, we cannot get it on the air in time. And that's great, because I think ultimately that's what audience deserves, the best you can deliver.
Speaking of the, go ahead. I was just going to say, speaking of the actors, what were the things that Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany were most concerned with getting right? What were they trying to calibrate as they went on? Because I can imagine that this, again, you're playing multiple time periods, multiple aspect ratios, multiple different versions of these characters. where were they most concerned about finding their way back to?
They understand those characters really well, and I think that their chemistry on screen is kind of undeniable. The way those characters fit together is a testament to them, both as individual performers, but also the magic that seems to be happening when they're together every time. The emotional through line was super clear. I mean, when I first sat down with Lizzie to talk about the show, the thing that she's always loved so much about Wanda as a character is that she has lost so much, arguably more than most in the MCU, certainly in the comics. Her parents, her mother, her parents, her brother, the love of her life. She's fragile. Her sort of grip on reality is tenuous at best at times, right? She's as close to kind of mental illness as you get in the comics. Lizzie cares so much about this character, and Paul about Vision too, that part of it was really important to all of us, and very important to Lizzie, very important to Paul, and I think very clear. The part that needed experimentation, and I think that they're most concerned about, is obviously the sitcom stuff, where you're taking these characters that you've seen in the Marvel Universe and you're putting them into very specific and very bizarre boxes, and they're amazing. And we had so much fun rehearsing and doing research, and they're both excellent at doing homework and preparing and bringing so much to the table. And then it was just about finding where that line was. What's too big? What's too small? And I do a lot of things that play around with tone. And so I enjoy that a lot. And I think it's just an opportunity to play, really. And then when you get into the editing room, if you have options, that's when you can sort of tell the forest from the trees. And that's when you can say, oh, we can push this moment. This moment could be sillier. But thank God we have this moment that's much more grounded, that reminds us of the real connection. And so it was about playing with that and playing with sort of what is comedy over time, because comedy changes so much. So they were just, they were familiar characters in very unfamiliar environments.
They deserve all the Emmys. I mean, everybody worked on the show. If you guys don't get at least nominated, if not win a fucking bunch of 10, because it was absolute fucking triumph, and their performances as well. You got to remember, this poor guy, Bettany, Paul, lovely human being, he's acting under a pound of fucking makeup all the time. Ridiculous. He's got to project through, like, a clown face essentially, and make you fucking care. And he's been doing it with this character for a while. But in this series, they got to pull the taffy, man. The two of them together have been wonderful in their small bits together in the movies. But here they got to enjoy each other's company, really act one another, pull out the best in one another, emotions running high whenever they were on set. And boy, did they honor those characters. You want to talk about two people that are playing it straight, man. They're not like goofing on it. There's nothing but respect and love they seem to have for the torches that they're carrying, which means a lot to a fan base that grew up with these characters and or just love these characters. You were telling a story that dovetails off of many stories that were told, but like essentially an Endgame sequel, which is like, talk about the fucking pressure, right? Like one of the greatest entertainments of all time. And they're like, what's the sequel? And you're like, WandaVision, I'm doing it. It's gotta be fucking terrifying. Did you also have to, while you're making the thing, since Marvel is what it is, there's another thing that's coming down the road, i.e. Multiverse of Madness. So while you're telling your story in the present, do you also have to make sure that you hook up with the story in the future as well?
To a degree, yes. But what's lovely about Marvel, and I've said this to a few folks who've asked that question, is it feels like a relay race, where someone hands you the baton and you run with it, and then you hand that baton off to the next one. It's not like you're reverse engineering your product to fit something that's more important or has been already established down the road. WandaVision was the focus while we were making it, and choices that we were making were then handed off to other films. The way we decided to describe Monica's powers, all of that stuff, it will continue on into Captain Marvel 2. So you do get a chance to kind of arrange the furniture while you've got control of the set, and then it moves on. But we did talk definitely to the filmmakers for both of the movies that we sort of more directly hand off to. Doctor Strange, their story room was right around the corner from our prep office, so we talked quite a bit. And then later, once we were nearing the end of our photography and Strange was really getting close to starting, I talked to Sam Raimi a couple of times, and we did our art department spoke, and we wanted to make sure there was a seamless handoff for sure.
Let's talk about the outfit. So, this is obviously the outfit will go on for a few movies and stuff. How much say does the director have in like, yeah, that's what the Scarlet Witch is going to look like for all time?
Definitely has say for sure. We worked with Andy Park, who's in their visual development department, and they're fabulous, and lots of different versions of Wanda outfits and White Vision and Agatha. All that stuff was sort of coming out of their department, and we would get together with Kevin and Victoria Alonso and Louis D'Esposito, the Marvel leadership, and we would discuss it and sort of tear it apart and rebuild it. And eventually we all got to something that we really loved, and we tried it on. It's also translating something from a concept design to an actual costume on an actor takes some time as well. And, trying to make sure that it works and it can move and it feels good in motion too, not just in a static frame, is tricky. And then the crown, because the crown is awesome. And the question of how big is that crown? Because it's very, very big in the comics. And so how big can you go? And we went pretty big. We didn't go 100% full huge crown, but I'm pretty happy with where we ended up.
But you did give us 100% huge crown in the Halloween episode, which is like that was the most any of us thought we were going to get of Wanda's headpiece. Like, oh, that's, that how funny, it's cheeky and they get to do it. And so I think it was a wonderful bait and switch because it completely threw me off the scent, so much so that I would never have suspected what was coming was like, oh no, she's going to be in the outfit. Not only is she going to be in the outfit, but she's going to adopt the name as well. I loved how you threw away some line with Hayward where he was just like, does she have one of those names or whatever?
Right.
Establishing like, no, she has no name, so that when it happens at the end of this, be fucking ready. I do want to talk about Hayward real quick. And as much as, the whole internet was like, he's got to be Mephisto. He's got to be some evil Marvel guy.
Everyone was Mephisto.
Everybody was Mephisto.
Yeah.
I point out that like this guy, he don't need to be Mephisto to be an evil Marvel guy. He was literally going to shoot 2 children in the street, pulled out a gun and was going to shoot 2 fucking kids. I'm like, that's as villainous as it gets. He doesn't secretly have to be Mephisto. He's a bad fucking dude, man. That sequence was wonderful though. Watching Monica use her powers for the first time and whatnot. That, is our first representation of Photon or whatever the character, whichever direction they take Monica in the comics. She has been Captain Marvel. She's had a few names and stuff.
Yeah.
In that, something like that, in as much as like, okay, we're going to show her powers for the first time. Like how much of that is like, okay, Matt, this is how it's going to be done. And how much of it is like, this is what I would like to do, because you're playing with toys that aren't yours. And it's like, and knowing going forward, this toy is going to be someplace else. If you're establishing a power and a look of a power, how much authorship does the director have in this world?
100% there. Much like what I was saying, even though she's going to go play a major role in a film to come, she belonged to WandaVision. And so we got to sort of figure out how to express that, what it would look like. Her transformation scene in episode 7, and then also how her powers would express over the next couple of episodes. And then, we built and rebuilt so many different versions of how she would function in the finale. She had, in some versions, much bigger role to play in the kind of larger fight that was happening. But ultimately, the structure of the show felt like it needed to be Agatha and Wanda, and obviously Vision and White Vision. And we wanted to make sure that we had a moment where Monica leveled up in a way, but left room for there to, there's a lot of story left to tell about that character.
How sad are you, or is this not the case at all? But, do you want to keep playing with these toys? Like you've invested so much time and passion and energy into it, like I understand that, at least from Kevin Feige, that he currently doesn't have an idea or formation for WandaVision season 2. The natural follow of this story is Doctor Strange 2. But like, do you want to stay in this arena? Do you want to keep on monkeying with these toys? Is there another Marvel story you want to tell? Is this an ecosystem that you're happy in?
You were talking to the guy who dressed up like Spider-Man to the point that had to stage an intervention. So I think you know the answer. I mean, I love comics. I grew up being a huge Marvel DC fan. I love the MCU. I was there front row for Iron Man and opening day, and I've been there for all the films ever since. And they're a great place to work. So, I mean, they're wonderful filmmakers, as I said. They're super supportive, and yet they're also totally focused on excellence, which I love. I had the best time, and I would absolutely come back. I don't, WandaVision season 2 isn't something that is being planned right now. Things can change. Obviously, it is the Marvel universe. Things, definitely there are surprises ahead. But we were trying to tell a very complete story over those 9 episodes. And we did reach a satisfying conclusion, hopefully, or, an emotional conclusion to that story. Hard to imagine how we would come back in a season 2 with that unique a structure in terms of sitcom and the story of Wanda and Vision. But I do think everything in the MCU leads to other things. So, Wanda continues into Doctor Strange, Monica continues into Captain Marvel, and where they go from there and how they end up maybe back on Disney Plus at some point, who knows? But, the future is exciting.
I would like a Jimmy Woo show, please.
Yeah.
Can you talk to the people about the Jimmy Woo hour?
Absolutely. Or maybe just a Ralph Boner show, seeing him like go on auditions and like just trying to make it,
Was Boner was a sitcom reference too, wasn't it? Because when Growing Pains, like there was a kid named Boner or something like that.
That's a reference to, I was on Growing Pains. So yeah, that's a reference to Boner. Yeah.
We saw Agatha Harkness get her introduction into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Of course, we saw Vision, Wanda, aka the Scarlet Witch. We saw Speed and Wiccan. We saw Monica Rambeau. Jimmy Woo came back. Darcy came back. Were there any Marvel characters that you guys at the beginning were like, these two, and then just couldn't make the cut?
Not really. It's such a full chessboard as it is. And getting all of those sort of chess pieces to go where they needed to go in that finale was hard enough. I think any more on the chessboard would have been tough. It was about Wanda and Vision the whole time, and I think the introduction of White Vision at the end was a really wonderful way to talk about it's the same theme of loss. Are you still the thing that I love? You can't go home again. This is her vision, but it's not her vision. And then this vision that she created that has no real body, is that real? Who is the real Vision was sort of one of the biggest questions of the finale, and part of her necessary journey for being able to accept her loss and move on.
What was the your favorite thing to shoot of all 9 episodes? The one where you were like, oh my God, but like that's career.
Oh, I mean, easily every part of the day that we shot Agatha All Along was my favorite part, where we would be in the middle of doing some, live audience taping day or whatever. They'd all leave, and then we'd do some wacky thing for Agatha All Along too, because we had to do it for every period. So we would do it when we had the sets up and the costumes or whatever. And just being able to hang around with Catherine Hahn being silly is super fun. And that was the highlight of the day for sure.
I've interviewed her before, and I think I was on an episode of At Midnight with her. Lovely, like warm, funny human being and stuff, and genuinely real. Was she like part of the project when you came in, or were you were you essential in her casting?
Yeah, no, she wasn't there. We cast her. We were always like, God, we want someone like Catherine Hahn, we just want someone like Catherine Hahn. And we could, she was definitely at the top of our list, but I think she was busy, Mrs. Fletcher. I can't remember what it was, And then there was that one day as we were debating, who we should make an offer to. They're like, she's available now. We're like, what? And she had come in just recently for a general meeting at Marvel to meet with Kevin and Lou. And so it just worked out that this, the rabbit we had been chasing, no pun intended, with her rabbit was right there all of a sudden available. And so that worked out great.
Victoria and Lou are 2 people you mentioned before. I saw Victoria speak at a kid's film school, like convocation or graduation, and she was absolutely wonderful. Like, and I fancy myself a good public speaker. So I remember sitting down and being like, I got to wait till this Marvel lady's done and then I get to go. And she had me captured. And she also captured all the kids' imagination as well. Really great speaker. Amazing. I don't know Lou at all. Who, and I honestly can't say I know her. I just saw her speak. Who are these two figures? We always talk about Kevin Feige, but who are Victoria and Lou?
Great question, and so well deserved to draw attention to both of them. The leadership at Marvel really is the trio of Kevin, Lou, and Victoria. Victoria they're all involved in everything. They'll be in meetings to talk about what will the Scarlet Witch look like. They'll read scripts. They'll be involved in all of the art department stuff that we're doing. They'll weigh in on casting, but Victoria primarily is in charge of handling post-production, visual effects. That, Lou primarily is overseeing production and sort of, so both of them have those two things sort of as their chief oversight. And Kevin is working obviously on all steps of those things. And he's working on scripts and casting, as well as overseeing day-to-day stuff and looking at cuts. And they all weigh in on editorial as well. So when I would do editorial reviews, it would be for the three of them and get their notes as we went along. So the three of them really are the engine that makes Marvel work.
And Kevin being the guy we reference all the time, it sounds like from your description of the process, he was not omnipresent, but involved every step of the way. How often do you see him once you get into, I'm sure in a lot, but once you get into production, how often do you see Kevin?
Quite a bit. He's amazing. I have no idea how he does all the things he does. I mean, I felt that he was totally focused 100% of the time on WandaVision, and yet he was also doing 5,000 other shows. And each one of those filmmakers felt he was focused on their project with the same degree of focus. Sometimes I felt like he knew my scripts better than I did, which I don't know how you do that. But the other thing about him is he's always incredibly calm. He's never frazzled, even though he's doing a million things, and he's able to be completely focused, which is wonderful and open. You can, send him a script, you can send him a scene, and he will take it in and have clear, great comments on it. It really is sort of a strange combination of showrunner and studio head. And people asking who is the showrunner of WandaVision. I mean, it wasn't me and it wasn't Jack. Like, we both kind of shared. She, oversaw the writing portion. We kind of met in the middle on the prep and the casting and all that. And then I kind of ran the production and the post part of it. But ultimately, along the way, our chief filter for every step of that was Kevin. So Kevin really is the showrunner of WandaVision. He's the ultimate sort of person to say if there's a decision to be made, which way to go, and the ultimate sort of note on something. But it's also going through Victoria and Lou as well, getting their notes. So yeah, it's a wonderful process, I have to say, and I think it does help it be the best that it can be.
Is directing another full-on season of TV a thing that you're looking for?
I'd be interested in it. I would, if it's the right story. It's fun to be able to be with things. Like you mentioned, The Great. I did the pilot to The Great, which was a lot of fun. Again,
that's a fun show. That was a really fun show.
Super fun show. Hard tone to get right. Casting was great. Really fun to build that world.
You did the pilot?
I did the pilot of that, yeah.
You had to set that tone. For those that don't follow this kind of thing closely, Matt has come, as we've listed a bunch of his credits prior to WandaVision, he has directed on a bunch of shows, but generally speaking, if you come into a show like, season 7 of Game of Thrones, style is set, the tableau is set. So you're pretty much making their show as best as you can, you're trying to elevate it, but you got to shoot their fucking show. If you shoot a pilot of something, you set the tone, essentially. Everyone who directs after you is in one way or another following the tone that you have to set. Now, in the case of WandaVision, Matt got to direct every episode, so the tone was his throughout. But generally speaking, on a TV show, the pilot director sets the tone, fucks off, maybe comes back a year later and shit like that. And in the process, everybody has made not carbon copies, but like versions of a show that look very much like what was established by the pilot director.
Which is a really fun job. I love doing that. It's, I do a lot of theater, as I mentioned. It's like, when you launch a new play out in the world, it's really fun to help it, get born. But something like Wanda, where you get to be there for the birth of it, the beginning, the middle, and the end of it, and you see it all the way through. It's super satisfying. And I would, love to do a big movie too. And that's really fun. But how much can you do in 2 hours versus what we were able to do in 6 hours? We're telling a really wonderful story. And it felt like just the right time. I'm loving this idea of 8, 9, 10 episodes. It's perfect. I mean, who wants to watch 22 episodes of Law and Order anymore? And also to some degree, who wants to watch 2 hours where you got to save the cat on page 20, you know, where you've got such a limited amount of time to introduce all your characters and tell a complete story. It feels like this limited series world is really a wonderful kind of golden age of storytelling. Just enough time, but not too much.
Is it going to be hard to just like drop into an episode of like Law and Order organized shopping and just like, here I am, 50 minutes, I'm done. You got 4 weeks out of me, I'm bouncing. Like, as opposed to the year that you spent in the WandaVision world.
Yeah, two years now in Wanda for sure, beginning to end. Yeah, I'm not so much interested in bopping in these days to just do an episode here or there. I think I'd rather try to find those limited series or films or pilots to do, because it is just so much more satisfying. It's fun to work on shows that you love. And if it's a show like Game of Thrones where it really feels like you're doing a movie and you're able to make a lot out of your episodes, even though there is a style template and there's certain kind of rules of the universe, the storytelling is so big that it does require a lot of a director. But yeah, just to pop in and do another episode of Law and Order is like, I don't know, there's more fun things to do. Yeah.
When you direct theater, it's to me, it's always been a befuddling process compared to film. You know, film, you do it like once and you shoot it and you never have to worry about doing it again or something like that. But a live show, they go on and mount the show every night, but the director's not there every night. So is it essentially like you create it, you rehearse them, you set the tone all through rehearsal, and then on opening night, you walk away?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, the stage manager is there to make sure that nothing goes awry. And if things start to get reinvented in a way that is breaking the rules of what you built, the stage manager is meant to kind of go in there and remind the actors, hey, this is not what we planned. And to keep it in line. But that's also part of the joy of theater, is that it changes every night and people are reacting to the audience and the audience is making that performance different in a different way, which is super exciting. But your job as a director in theater is to build that experience with your actors together, figure out how you can tell the same story with the same tone, the same approach, and build each moment so that it all has a logic so that it can repeat every night organically. Nothing's being sort of shoehorned in. The whole story just flows because that's how you built it. And that's the challenge of that. But you have 4 weeks to rehearse it and build it, and then it's off. And hopefully then it
that it, Joe, 4 weeks? Is that a normal standard play time or? Pretty
much, yeah. Yeah, it depends, Broadway versus summer stock, it'll change a little, 3 or 4 weeks, yeah.
And you mentioned before now you fucking work you had the Pico Theater of your own.
Yeah.
Now you're fucking running shit at the Geffen, which for those that don't live out here, it's a big playhouse in Los Angeles. How much time do you find, like obviously during the course of shooting WandaVision, you can't be doing any live shows and stuff. How often do you jump back into the world? It seems like your heart's in both places.
Definitely, yeah. And as the artistic director at the Geffen Playhouse, I'm always working on stuff there. So reading scripts, hiring directors, working on casting. So I get home from shooting a long day at Wanda and I would, open up my laptop in Atlanta and just go to work for 3 or 4 hours, and I was doing the pilot to The Great. I was working all night, because of the time difference, to, help with the shows that were happening at the theater. And when I'm not directing TV or film stuff, then I'm there at the theater in rehearsal, helping stuff out. And then I direct once every couple of seasons, I'll do a play.
I tell you, man, like you got a big, long dick of a career here with a lot of fucking work to show for it. And I've seen absolutely some of it and enjoyed it and stuff, but quantum leap forward, career best with what you've done with WandaVision. I don't just mean that as a guy who likes Marvel stuff. I'm talking about a guy who just loves TV, who loves movies, who loves to feel, who loves to look at fake people and feel real things. For you to be able to pull the amount of emotion that you did from me with, one guy is a synthezoid and the other is a broken witch, like Baby Witch, as the broken Baby Witch, and watching her become whole again. It was an incredible emotional journey for the viewer and a magic trick, Matt. Like, fucking not everyone could pull that shit off. Like, the fact that you have worked tonally in all over the place, and then found a project that was like, everything you've ever done, we need that here, including your childhood acting in sitcoms, is breathing rarefied fucking air. But like, it's not like, man, he's lucky he got that gig. The right guy got the fucking gig. I don't know that it would be what it is if you weren't an element. Congratulations, man. It's one of my favorite things. I put it right there with Book of Mormon. One of my favorite things ever made by human beings.
Well, Bobby Lopez, who wrote our theme songs, also made Book of Mormon. So there you go.
Oh my God, really?
Oh yeah, it's all because of Bobby.
So Bobby, and he did Agatha All Along and all those songs?
So Bobby and Kristen Anderson Lopez, they won
an Oscar for Frozen, right? They're the Frozen kids. They got the EGOT.
Yeah, so they wrote Frozen and Coco, but Bobby also wrote on his own. He wrote Avenue Q and Book of Mormon, and then with his wife, who's amazing, they wrote all the theme songs for WandaVision.
So he's the secret sauce.
Did you guys know when you were doing it that Agatha All Along was going to be the jam that would take off?
Did not expect it to chart on iTunes. When I was texting Han, like just watching it go, I was like, "Are you past Bieber? Are you past like only Cardi B can stop you now?" And it was amazing to see that happen. I mean, I've known Bobby since college. We went to college together. He wrote really awesome scores for terrible plays that I directed back in the day, and we haven't had a chance to work together as proper adults. And when this was happening, I knew that there was no one better than the Lopez's to be able to do this. And they love TV theme songs, and they were thrilled. And they did just a brilliant job. And I was amazed that Agatha All Along took off the way it did, but I'm so happy. I'm so happy that it did.
Were you prepared for the memification of WandaVision? Like, it's been bonkers, man. Like, and the things that I didn't expect, like my favorite thing was people taking Vision in the black turtleneck and like putting a giant necklace on him, and he's now Vishon.
Yeah. I saw that today. I sent that to Bethany. It was so funny. Yeah, I loved all the, I loved the line, what is grief but love persevering. But then Paul's good at sending memes. He sent me my favorite one was, what is beef if not cow persevering? Which I think was brilliant.
I said, what is cheese if not milk persevering?
That's good.
Right. A lot of good ones out there. I mean, people are so talented and creative. Seeing the TikTok videos, seeing the remixes, it's awesome and an honor. And, we just had our head in the sand like ostriches making this thing, never imagining or thinking about quite what the reaction would be. So it's so exciting and kind of overwhelming.
As they always say in this business, once you accomplish an amazing fucking feat that can't be achieved by anybody else and will stand the test of time. The first question they always ask is, what are you doing next? What are you going to do after this? How do you fucking follow up WandaVision?
Exactly. So I should retire, right? That's probably what I should do.
Right at the top, man. It'll never be better. I mean, shit. But what do you have to keep going. So what do you do?
No idea. Not sure. It's funny. I had a whole bunch of stuff planned for what I was going to do after WandaVision was done. And then the pandemic hit and all those other things just kind of, went away because of one reason or another. I was going to do the Scottish play, which you don't say the name because it's cursed, with one of the great actors from Game of Thrones, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, at the Geffen. It was going to be really fun. We had the whole thing planned, ready to go.
I'd see that. Oh my God, I would totally see that. And the died?
And well, yeah, because, no theater.
Somebody say the name?
Year and a half.
Somebody said the name, didn't they?
Yeah, right, exactly. And then I was going to do this amazing script for the Russos about the Cambridge Analytica scandal, the Facebook scandal, that helped Trump's election. And then, but it's a more modest indie budget, and that's not something you can do really during COVID. And then and my schedule was so overwhelmed with Wanda that I couldn't stay with it. So I just kind of been working on WandaVision so hard and till 2 weeks ago that I haven't even thought about what's next. So I'm now just taking a beat and a deep breath, and we'll see.
It was worth all the time and the effort. You deserve as much of a break as you want, and you really deserve to cherry pick whatever it is you get to do next. It sounds like you got no problem finding work and finding, more importantly, finding satisfaction in the work that you do. But I gotta believe, you know, I'm certainly not finger on the pulse in this business, but I've been around long enough to know that like heat finds fucking heat. I can't imagine you don't get offered the world after fucking this. So rest up, Matt. They're gonna start fucking giving you the big fucking jobs and shit like that. And you earned it. This is wonderful. But I said it before you got on. I'll watch this shit forever. You know, same way like when I fucking get bored or lonely or sad and I turn to some shit that makes me feel good that I've watched my entire life. WandaVision now joins a very exclusive list of go-to instant feels. Like I can see myself just waking up in the morning with nothing to do, smoking a joint and fucking watching the highlights, just going through every episode and cherry picking the shit that made me feel like, and that's what it did. It made you laugh. It made you cry. It just made you feel. It was so fucking human. So thank you for that, man.
Well, thank you. I'm a huge fan of yours. You are a huge inspiration to me. It's an honor to be here. It really, truly is.
Can you stick around and answer some questions from the audience if we make sure that they're not fucking spoilery?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, bring it on. Yeah.
You jump in. Instead of me and Mark answering questions, I'm sure the kids would probably much rather hear from Matt, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. But you find some questions, JC. We got to read another ad.
Oh my God, that's right.
For housekeeping, that's right. Matt, stand by while we earn some of that fucking money for our show. This ain't Marvel, man, so we ain't got those fucking crazy Disney bucks. We gotta pay for our overhead.
Marvel Disney Plus bucks. It's different.
Yes, oh my God. And another thing, like fucking, like the magic trick that it takes to have a Disney Plus show that makes people forget that only last month Luke fucking Skywalker showed up on The Mandalorian. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were the first show that had to follow that shit. And still, you guys stuck the landing and captured the imagination. Hats off. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, what are we selling this time around? This is our good folks, our good friends at Keeps, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we watched Vision. Keeps, right?
Indeed.
We watched Vision and the Scarlet Witch. We watched WandaVision for the last 8-9 weeks. And the one thing you can't escape is Vision is bald as fuck. He could have used some Keeps. Could have used Keeps if he'd started in Age of Ultron, because that's the thing about Keeps is you use it right away and it helps you keep your hair and stuff. If he'd started in Age of Ultron, he'd have had a lush head of hair today. From
if you do not have the ability to alter your sort of visage at will, you might want to look at some Keeps. It offers an easy, stress-free way to keep your hair. Convenient virtual doctor consultations and medications delivered straight to your door. Every 3 months, you don't even have to leave your house.
We know Keeps has been a proud sponsor of Fat Man Beyond for a while now, which means that it must be working. You don't get people to come back as a sponsor unless some people are out there going like, I'll try that Keeps. So why don't you be like all the people who've been in our audience so far, man, who's given them a shot that afforded us the opportunity to do yet another commercial for the good folks at Keeps, man. How do they do that, Mark? Where do they go?
They go to keeps.com/fatman to receive your first month of treatment for free. And after that, treatment start at just $10 per month, and they also offer generic versions of the medication. So that's keeps.com, keeps.com/fatman to get your first month free.
They ain't going to make you new hair. Nobody could do that, ladies and gentlemen, but they can help you keep the hair that you got, for heaven's sakes, man. Keeps, a proud sponsor of Fat Man Beyond. If you're trying to hold on to it, go, what's the address one more time, Mark?
Keeps.com/fatman.
Thank you, Keeps. And thank you, Matt, for your childhood actor skills kicked in as you kept a straight face going, what fucking show is this? Why am I sitting through an ad? But you know what? We sat through many of your fucking ads. Let's talk about those ads real quick.
Sure.
What was the purpose of those ads? I've read every theory online from people, but now I'm going to go right to the source. What was the idea of the ads?
I don't want to spoil anybody's fabulous theories because there are some amazing theories out there. It was a way to trickle out some of the bigger questions of the show. History of Wanda, of course, Stark toasters, Strucker watches, Hydra bath soak, Lagos, and so on. They also worked thematically as well, the shark and the poor kid on the desert island. So up for interpretation, of course, but they had the same actors in all of them for a reason. Same idea that everything was iterated in this world, and Wanda just decided those two lovely townspeople needed to be cast permanently in the ads. And that, you know, that was pretty much it. There's nothing to do with Infinity Stones really, but yeah.
There was a lot of I remember the internet had me convinced that they were going to be Wanda's parents when they finally did the flashback.
Right.
And when they weren't, I was like, well, go figure, the internet's wrong. I never knew that we'd ever see the day that the internet was incorrect. The scene with Wanda and her parents, beautiful scene in Sokovia and whatnot, but this is a realized version of a story we had only heard before in Age of Ultron. What kind of responsibility is that when you're like, all right, now we're actually going to show this thing that people have known for a while?
It was all about trying to answer that question about why sitcoms. You know, it was about what place they had in her life. And it was, you know, she learned English from watching them. Her father was a bootlegger trying to make a buck by hustling them in Sokovia. And that as the war rages outside, they find solace as a family huddled together around a television. You know, you were saying, I think about, you know, this is your wife is who you watch TV with. You know, that's husband and wife on the couch mirroring Vision and Wanda as the kids are down on the floor watching. It's a scene that we've all had in our own lives and have seen throughout the history since television was invented, you know, as we all gather around this sort of modern day fireplace and watch. And it happens to be Dick Van Dyke, you know, and my favorite episode of Dick Van Dyke, you know, I get to pick those things. And it's the one that is most similar to WandaVision because it's playing around with this kind of crazy Twilight Zone thing. It's all a dream sequence. And so that's the origin story, you know, and so it's how Agatha can say, here is a baby witch obsessed with sitcoms with years of therapy ahead of her. It's the launching point for the story.
That moment is insanely resonant. I talked to Walt Flanagan, my friend, who was on Comic Book Men for years and stuff like that. Walt's not the biggest beating heart there is. You know, he's got a heart, but he's generally he don't cry like me and shit. I don't think he's ever cried.
Yeah.
But you know, he's a big Marvel guy, going way back, particularly classic Marvel. So I hadn't checked in with him. I had no idea if he was watching WandaVision. And so we were talking a couple of weeks ago. I was like, you watching WandaVision? He goes, fuck yeah. I was like, you like it? And he goes, I fucking love it. And so we talked after the one episode I just watched, second to last, and he hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, do me a favor. When you're done, text me. I don't care what time it is, and tell me what your favorite moment was. Because I was fucking sure that it was going to be White Vision. Because like it comes directly from a fucking comic of West Coast Avengers. I thought he'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing White Vision. And he texted me at like 2 a.m. to say, Wanda watching Dick Van Dyke with her family was the best moment of that show for me. And it's not just because like, you know, he's a Nick at Night guy or whatever the fuck. It's because like you said, we all have that moment somewhere in our lives, somewhere in our memories. One of the best moments of our childhood are gathered around a TV set with members of our family. And it don't happen anymore. Like the world doesn't operate that way anymore. People don't consume television that same way anymore. The model, though, of, you know, here, we're only give you one episode a week, really pushed toward that. Because if you guys dropped 8 episodes, I probably would have streamed it in my office and fuck my wife. But instead, I watched it with my wife and she was fucking dialed in, man. So,
yeah.
Huge.
I mean, because it was such a love letter to classic television, going out weekly made sense. And I do think because it introduced Wanda in this 50s setting, grandparents were interested. People who had grown up watching those shows in syndication were interested. And so I've heard many stories, wonderful stories about grandparents and parents and grandkids all sitting, you know, coming together to watch the show, or because of the pandemic, not being able to be together, but then comparing stories and having grandkids explain to grandparents who Thor is and what this is and what that is. And that's lovely. You know, the fact that the show has allowed different viewers, maybe non-Marvel fans, to come together around a story has been really exciting.
Do you know that going in? Like, is there, you know, we assume from the outside that Marvel knows everything they're doing in advance and fucking everything's calculated and stuff like that. Do they know, like, as you guys are making it, I bet your family's going to sit down and watch this together. I bet you it's going to be a multi-generational thing. Is it designed to be such, or is that just like, wow, look at that, go figure. All right, we'll take it, freebie.
You know, a little bit of both. You know, certainly it wasn't designed that way. It wasn't engineered like that. That Marvel wanted to make something that everyone could watch together. But it is the nature of this story, and the story was very specific. And the fact that it did embrace older television created an opportunity there. And the fact that the earlier episodes were rated PG allowed younger kiddos to watch them. My 5-year-old daughter, who's watched nothing that I've made, of course.
Really? Not even Succession? I would imagine that's
right.
5-year-old crowd.
Yeah, she loves WandaVision. She has made me watch the episodes over and over to the point where I'm like, I've seen this enough. I do not want to watch this. We're listening to the theme songs in the car. So it's wonderful that, it has appealed to audiences of all ages. But no, it wasn't some nefarious plan. My wife worked at Disney Animation forever, and I do remember them saying, movies with an all animal world sell better in China or whatever. So that was the impetus for Zootopia being made, I think, a long time ago. Even though that movie is amazing and it had so much to say when it came out, it did begin with a kind of reverse engineered desire. But that is not the case with WandaVision. The story was much more idiosyncratic than that. And I guess it's the Field of Dreams thing. If you build it, they will come, hopefully.
Sidebar, what Disney stuff did your lady work on?
Everything. She's a genius. She worked there during the golden age. My daughter has a credit on Moana because they have production babies that are born during so she's right there next to the Rock's daughter, I think, and Lin-Manuel's daughter right on there, or son. But she, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Zootopia, a bunch of great movies.
Oh my God. It must be amazing to be your children. Like, dad working at fucking WandaVision, mom's worked at Disney, like access to all fun, wonderful things.
It's great. Whenever she has questions about a movie, my wife is able to be like, okay, well, do you want to FaceTime with the director who made that? And you can ask her other questions about the North Ultra people.
Can Mark be friends with your wife? Because that's the kind of access he would like as well.
I have theories.
Yeah. My daughter asked some tough questions, though. She was asking some serious Frozen 2 mythology questions and stumping them,
Genius. All right, JC, come on back. We got to let Matt go back to his life and stuff. But I'm sure there's some cats that want to ask him some questions. You pull some questions for us?
Yeah, I got some questions. I really like this one. We touched on it, but I think people kind of want to know more. Joseph Santos was asking if you could elaborate a little bit on the what is grief if not love persevering line. Where did it come from? How did it develop? How did that come from nothing to be like what everybody was crying and talking about for a week or two?
It's a great question. I mean, the simple answer is that it came from the mind of the writer of that episode, the amazing Laura Donney, who wrote a very beautiful, elegant, simple line to encapsulate what the entire series was about. And it's also, it comes after a really beautiful line as well. I think people forget about the line before about waves of grief and what it's like for Wanda to experience that loss, how difficult that is. And then Vision gives her a key of a way to take her grief and turn it into something wonderful and allow her to move forward. And it's how they bond together. And here's this guy who's not human, and yet he's more human than the rest of us. He seems to understand humanity more than any of us. So it's a key to why they fall in love. And I think why did it take off so much? That's something you can never predict. And we did not know when we started making this, that it would come out in the middle of a pandemic where everyone will have lost someone, where over 500,000 people have died in this country alone. I think grief and loss is everywhere right now. So a line that would have had resonance, I think, in any year takes on extra special significance this year. So that's part of it, I think. And then it's also the fact that it's just so beautifully performed by two amazing actors. That episode is big and it goes everywhere. And we're constantly making crazy cinematic transitions. And then you end up with two actors on a bed. talking to each other. And that's it. That's the show right there. You don't need any bells and whistles. You just need two amazing performers bringing that to life.
What a great answer, but a great question too, man. And you're absolutely right. Like, this show is a healing, soothing balm, you know, after the fucking year that we've had. I went into it not even thinking about that. I was just delighted we're seeing WandaVision. But now that you put it like that, it's absolutely true. It was probably as comforting as it was, because it was a fucking warm blanket after a real fuck of a year, man. I think with time, more people will probably see it the way you said it, like with some time going on, like, oh, remember, we'll be able to look back and be like, remember how shitty things were until WandaVision was on?
We did it, man. We solved the pandemic, right?
You did.
You delivered
vaccines to people.
Better than both administrations. This cured the fucking heart, the broken heart of COVID, ladies and gentlemen. JC, come on back. Give us another question. That was a good one.
Okay. Don't feel compelled to answer this, but if I don't ask it, everyone in chat is going to have my head. Everybody wants to know about fake Pietro. Why bring that actor back? That is the overwhelming question happening.
That's fair. Some stranger texted me about it earlier today as well. How do people get your cell phone number? I don't know. But they actually launched into a tirade.
What did they write? The stranger? Just out of the blue?
Yeah, just out of the blue. No idea who the person is. Sent me this tirade like, didn't you guys learn from Iron Man 3 with the fake Mandarin? And my first takeaway was that was my favorite part of Iron Man 3.
Yes.
When Ben Kingsley came out of the bathroom, was like, don't go in there. I was like, this is amazing. Trevor, the fake Mandarin, was fantastic. Playing with expectations, turning things around is always enjoyable. And what I would say to the Marvel fan who's a little disappointed that the X-Men didn't show up or the multiverse didn't show up clearly right there, is that they're coming. You know they're coming, right? You've got a movie called Multiverse of Madness. You've got mutants announced at Comic-Con a year and a half ago. Like, they're coming. And guess who else is coming? The Mandarin is coming. He is also announced as the villain in Shang-Chi. So your patience will be rewarded. But what we were doing, I mean, yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson could have been there at the door, and then I guess he would have been the puppet of Agatha. But we already have a loved one brought back really from the dead in Vision, right? So what's more interesting, like what grief does to us that that allows us to accept a face that is unfamiliar to us, and to roll with that, as unnerving as it may seem. Because Wanda, again, this is bargaining, right? Here we are in the stages of death, stages of grief. Like, she's willing to bargain with herself in a way to be like, yeah, I want my brother back too, so I'm willing to accept that this is not the face that I remember. And then, at the same time, it's a sitcom. It's a meta comment. He's been recast. He's, Dick Sargent instead of Dick York.
He's the second Darren.
Right. He's the second Darren.
Or the second Becky, for that matter.
Right. But in the end,
yes.
Yes, and there is a whole great tradition of that in sitcoms. And to top it all off, this is Evan Peters. He's a great actor. He's a brilliant actor. He's so funny. And like everybody else in this show, capable of doing anything from comedy to drama and everything in between, and all of it at the same time. And to have him show up as Uncle Jesse and disrupt this family, I mean, these are really fun. And at the end, people would have been asking us, who's Ralph, if we hadn't answered that one. So we answered that one. He's Ralph. He's the poor guy at the end of the block that Agatha moved in, and put some puka beads around his neck, so that's what happened.
I did not bump into that in the least. Like, when it turned out to be nothing but a guy that she fucking put a spell on.
Yeah.
That didn't. I enjoyed the fucking mic drop of the end of that episode of seeing him at the door. I enjoyed like the next episode of is he, isn't he, or whatnot. I loved when she called him Pietro a couple episodes later and stuff. I didn't bump into that at all. I'm telling you, I enjoy theories as much as the next person and whatnot. For one, I was saying earlier in the run of WandaVision, I was like, I don't know why people are saying Mephisto. And then at a certain point, the internet had me convinced that it was going to be Mephisto. So I was like, I guess it could totally be Mephisto. But there wasn't one like internet theory or one like, ooh, it could be Reed Richards, or it could be Dr. Doom. It could be, Victor Von Doom. None of that. Like, when credits rolled, I was never like, oh, they could have, and they didn't. I was so delighted with the miracle that the show fucking was, man. Like, so expectation can get the better of some people. But me, I had high expectations based on the trailers I was talking about on this show. From the moment we started seeing commercials, I was like, I think I'm going to love this because I think it's going to be fucking sad. Like, I think there's a real sadness at work here. And it was completely satisfying for me. I didn't feel like, oh, if only they'd done this. I do have a question though about, like, it looked like a scheduling thing where, Darcy hits Hayward's car and then later on they're like, Darcy didn't stick around. Like, she didn't like that kind of thing. Really felt like Darcy's on another movie now. We just got to throw in a line. Why is she not here? That felt like production to me and stuff like that. But it was,
yeah,
I absolutely fucking loved it, obviously. I'll be talking about it forever, man. I'm so glad they came on and talked about it and got to answer some questions. I think we're going to get to one more question. Is that correct, JC?
Let's do it.
Yeah, we can do one more. This one, again, may stretch our luck here, but what is one fan theory about your work that wasn't true but you totally loved?
Ooh, that is actually a good question. Was there any fan theory that you were like, fuck, why didn't we do that?
Was there any that I wish we had done? Not really. I mean, I loved the everything down to like the cicada on the curtain was Mephisto. Everyone was Mephisto. The mailman was Mephisto.
I thought the rabbit. I was like, the rabbit, Mr. Scratchy's got.
Let me just say something about Senor Scratchy. We did have something more planned for Senor Scratchy, which we ultimately couldn't do just because the finale, we had so many different, as I said, so many different chess pieces on the. But we did have a whole sequence where Darcy, Monica, Ralph meet up with the kids and they're in Agatha's house and they think that maybe they should steal the Darkhold from the basement because the kids had seen it when they were down there being held hostage by Agatha. And they go down there to get the book and they're reaching for the book and the rabbit hops up in front of the book. And they're like, oh, it's Senor Scratchy. He's the best. And they like reach over to pet him and he like hisses. And then this whole American Werewolf in London transformation happens and the rabbit turns into this big demon, right? And to her, like, familiar, and then Goonies set piece ensues with all sorts of fun as they try to escape from the rabbit, But we shot it, but didn't finish all the VFX and stuff for it. And it was a great sequence. It was super fun. Everyone was great in it. But we ended up, moving it aside because it was a huge sort of detour in the middle of everything else that we had going. So yeah, so Senor Scratchy did have a little bit more left on the cutting room floor.
I look forward to the 12-hour Matt SHAKMAN cut.
Yes,
of WandaVision.
Yeah, that Matt SHAKMAN's WandaVision.
Yeah, spared no expense.
Right, exactly.
You know what? It's probably better that the rabbit didn't turn into a monster because then you'd have everybody going, now that's Mephisto for
yes,
sure.
Right, exactly.
Or they'd be like, come on, it's got to be Fing Fang Foom. It's got to be something connected to the Marvel Universe. Because nothing can just be a cicada in the Marvel Universe.
Right.
There's got to be another story. Exactly. What do we got?
Do we want to do one more? This is kind of a fun one.
Well, that was the one. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just asked for another one. Go ahead.
If Matt could play one hero in the MCU, who would you want to play that's not already in it?
Excellent question to end on. Matt?
Oh, that's not
that
already.
was from Cam K, by the way.
Oh.
Thank you.
I mean, I was a former actor, maybe like Simon Williams, maybe Wonder Man.
Wonder Man.
Yeah.
There were theories that Wonder Man was the remember Jimmy Woo was like, I've got somebody
right
in protective custody or whatever, and it was and somebody was like, that's Simon Williams, the Wonder Man. Right. I don't know where people get this, man. Just the idea, wish fulfillment, but they're so convincing. And all you have to do is put that into a website headline, and I'll totally buy that. Where I'm like, got to be true. They put it in print.
Totally.
You did an amazing thing, sir. I'm glad you did everything you did in your life because it led you to making this thing. And this is one of my favorite things I've ever fucking seen. Thank you for honoring these characters, and thank you for honoring the work of Jack and who was the producer lady?
Mary Lavanos.
Oh. You guys, brain trust to this storytelling, absolutely wonderful. You got tremendous performances out of two actors who give wonderful performances all the time. But like, I bet you they respected the fuck out of a guy who's a theater guy as well. They probably like showed up a bit more for work because you got some credibility on your side besides like your long body of work, man. Actors love that kind of live theater shit. So congratulations, sir. More continued success. But even if you never do another thing, this to me is your do the right thing. Like when I saw Do the Right Thing, people like were like, well, what's he going to do next? I'm like, he never has to do fucking anything next. Spike Lee just made Do the Right Thing. You ain't got to do nothing for the rest of your life. You made WandaVision, but I'm sure you'll continue on and make wonderful, great things, just like Spike Lee went on after Do the Right Thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Congratulations. You made a show that's about something. And, you know, now more than ever, it is so important that even what feels like should be ephemeral and what feels like should be throwaway and could get away with just being disposable cotton candy, bubblegum, you know, piffle, it isn't. You know, it's about something. And I think that's incredibly important. And you should be very proud of the work that you and your team did, because it didn't have to be. And I'm so glad that it is.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching and enjoying it. And thanks for this time. I appreciate it.
Oh my God. Thank you. And thanks for coming on, talking to everybody. Thank you to the audience for hanging out tonight. We're going to skip the news because what fucking news is there beyond this? This was the news, for heaven's sakes. Fucking look what we got to pick the brain of the motherfucker responsible. You know, never mind. We always sit around and go like, imagine effort. What were they thinking? We literally got to find out what was being thought, man. Thank you to Matt for joining us. Thank you to the audience for joining us. Thanks, JC, for making all this work and whatnot. Thank you, Marvel, for continuing to make shit that I want to watch and whatnot. Captured my heart and imagination. And we'll be back next week with more. Sadly, ain't no more WandaVision to talk about, but you know, we'll be referencing it from now until the end of the time.
We'll find something. Maybe we'll play a game of Yahtzee and we'll talk about that to fill the void.
There will be something to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Fat Man Beyond for this week. I'm Kevin Smith.
I'm Marc Bernardin.
And our guest has been
Matt SHAKMAN.
Tune in next time. Same fat channel. Smodcast.com or
youtube.com/Kevin Smith.
What is a death if not love persevering, ladies and gentlemen? That's a terrible line to go out on. Jeff's kiss.